Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the NGen Conversations Podcast, streaming live from HANNOVER MESSE 2026, Hall 26, proudly sponsored by York Region. I'm your host, Mark Kirby. Delighted this morning to be joined by the CEO and comedian for NGen, Jay Myers. Jay, before we get into HANNOVER 2026, it's actually been a pretty long road to get here. Do you mind taking us back and just telling us how did Canada get onto this show?
Yeah, well, first of all, of course, there have been Canadian companies here at Hanover for many years. Roger Hallett, who's been a great part of our team this year.
1986 was his first show, yeah, with Siemens.
Last century for Roger. but I first came over in 2011, and it was the year that the concept of Industry 4.0 was first announced here at HANNOVER MESSE, and I was part of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association at the time, and was asked to come over and participate in that launch conference. So that was the first time I met people like Marco Siebert, who is the head of international relations here at Hanover, and it was really, that was the kind of the first time where I thought maybe Canada would really have a chance and where we should be here. Maybe as partner country, but we should be here in order to be able to show Canadian companies what...
More of a national presence versus just individual companies.
Yeah. And I think, we were thinking at that time it would still be really great to be able to have everybody under a Team Canada banner. And so those discussions were going on. But the nature of the fair at that time was more industrial equipment and heavier equipment. It wasn't the type of fair you see now, which is mainly, intelligent industrial systems and AI and automation systems. So it was a little bit more difficult to figure out, the right fit for Canadian exhibitors. Individual companies were here, but it would have been more difficult, to have brought a large number of exhibitors under one banner. So in 2019, at that time, then it was becoming more around automation, robotics, even AI at the time, 5G. I remember presentations on new networks and new computing for industrial applications. And so then we kind of started thinking, well, maybe there is a role for Canada, and Stéphane Dion was the ambassador at the time. He really understood the opportunity here. I remember meeting with him and with John Nubley, who was the deputy minister at the time, and nothing concrete, but that's where we started really thinking that maybe there was an opportunity, at least for a Canadian pavilion. And then in 2022, NGen organized a Canadian pavilion. We had, I think it wasn't a large one, but about 20 exhibitors who came with us in that year. 2023, we had a few more exhibitors. And at that time, we had a chance to sit down with Marco Siebert and the organizers of HANNOVER MESSE, and really started speaking in practical terms about what would happen if Canada were partner country here. And of course, every year they have a partner country, and it really shines a light on that country and the advanced manufacturing capabilities. So following up from that meeting, there was an official invitation issued to the Prime Minister to ask Canada to be the partner country, and Prime Minister Trudeau at the time accepted that. I think one thing I learned and kind of surprised about is that this isn't an invitation from the fair itself. It's an invitation from the German Chancellor's office. So the partner country presence.
So it really is
very
country
important.
to country.
It's really country to country, and so of course In 2024, we had 84 exhibitors join us. Last year was our partner country year, and we had 245 exhibitors. There were probably over 1,000 Canadians here. A great show. A lot of attention, of course, on Canada, and with all the silliness south of the border, I think, well, we can talk about this later, but I think it really not only shone a spotlight on our advanced manufacturing capabilities, but also on the business opportunities, particularly between Germany and Canada. And then this year we were back with around 100 exhibitors and many more Canadians here as well, walking around the show, and we want to continue that, grow that presence next year too. Although this is a bit of a slimmed down version even from last year.
But I think it's been commented, hasn't it? Sometimes a partner country, sort of when they come back, they don't come back at full throttle, but Canada is back at full throttle. I think some people even think that we're still a partner country.
Yeah, well, they thought we were a partner country in 2024, and we're getting the same comments. Are you a partner country again this year?
But it's a very strong branding, Team Canada, isn't it?
It is, and we want to really draw attention to of course Canada, but Canadian capabilities too. So our branding has always been a bit on the edgy side, and we've got a great presence here. But we also last year had big posters saying we're here to make a mess, MESSE, and so we had a lot of fun, and I think that's what I mean. It's easy to set up a booth of exhibitors here, and that's in a way what Brazil has done, but you really need to do something edgy, catchy, really good branding, which we have. Last year we had a student robotics team from Alliston High School with a robotic hockey goalie,
yes,
and we had a mechatronics contest with colleges and Festo apprenticeship programs there. So the idea is to do something really catchy, so you're bringing people in to see the exhibits from our companies.
And we do, of course, throw the best parties and have the best food as well. Yes,
great food, great parties.
But it's serious business, isn't it, HANNOVER MESSE? And you're an economist, Jay. Just talk to us about the value of HANNOVER MESSE to Canada as a country.
Well, and going back to the comment about the party and the hospitality that we offer here, which is really important. I mean, it's one thing about Hanover, which I think is very different from trade fairs at home, is that this is where people actually do business. It goes back, centuries in terms of what a real fair is like in Germany, but also, in France and Italy here too. This is not just a showcase of technology. It's a place where you see CEOs and people ready to do business. You have investors walking the floor. We've had a number of opportunities. I speak to a couple of them this year, but lots where business is actually done here. And so let's see. 2 years ago, we followed up. We always follow up to get the results, and we give it a few months after the show, because there's a
gestation period, isn't
after
there?
that.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, you have to follow up with your leads. And even last year, Embraer got in touch with us 2 months after the fair, saying, hey, we saw 17 Canadian companies at Hanover last year. Can you make introductions? Because they've taken the leads and they've done their research on the companies and then want to get in touch. But in 2024, we followed up probably about $120 million of business that was generated directly as a result of the participation of companies here. Last year, we only had 2/3 of companies that we were able to connect with, but with them 260 million, and so that takes you up to $380 million over 2 years. And our target this year was to raise that to $500 million. And I'm really glad to say one of our companies told us yesterday that they've been able to secure deals for $200 million. So we're going to have to look at maybe reaching that $1 billion mark pretty soon too.
So reach for the stars.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, we had a smaller company, but they were able to say they think they can draw a line potentially to $5 million from the show, which is amazing.
Well, it also, it of course speaks to the business opportunities here, but it also speaks to how powerful Canadian advanced manufacturing technologies actually are. I mean, when you see the best of technology in the world for industrial automation here, and when you walk around, one of the things that has impressed me is how sophisticated Canadian technology in this field actually is. When you've got AI and we've got cyber companies, we've got robotics companies, and they, to quote one of our exhibitors who was asked, "Who is your competition?" he basically said, "No one." You know, they are really world leaders in what they do, and there's a lot of business opportunities and created here too among the Canadian exhibitors who have never met each other before, but it's pretty impressive what Canada has to offer, and we want to continue to showcase that, and of course that's more important than ever.
And as you said, it's a global stage, and it's of tremendous importance, and we've seen Minister Joly here. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of exposure for Canada as a country and how important it is?
Well, last year, Hannover Messe is always very political. As I mentioned, this is an invitation from the Chancellor to the Prime Minister, and last year, unfortunately, we didn't have any ministers, and Prime Minister couldn't come because we were in the middle of the federal election. But this year, Minister Joly was here. I think she really knocked the ball out of the park in terms of her presentations about defense policy, but some of the advantages of doing business in Canada here, and how Canadian companies are looking at expanding their business around the world, and see Germany in particular as a really good destination for investment and for finding customers and innovation partners here too. And I just wanted to make sure that she was really impressed by Team Canada, and she was. She
and I think it's fair to say Team Canada were impressed by her, weren't they? She was very hands-on with all of the exhibitors. I saw she was trying some of this latest technology for herself, and it wasn't just a photo opportunity. I think she was really learning more herself about what Canada has to offer.
Yeah, no, that's right, and good for her. I mean, a part of the power of what Team Canada can present to her is it's fine to talk when you got all sorts of analysis and you've got all sorts of officials working for you, and I know right now we're trying to make the argument that industrial AI is really where the government should be focusing on an adoption of AI, adoption of all of these other technologies around it in manufacturing. But one of the things that was really very powerful was to bring her here so she actually she can see what this is all about and actually understands it. So when you talk about industrial AI and integration of AI and manufacturing technologies, then she actually understands that rather than trying to figure it out theoretically.
Yeah, there's no better place to figure out how to be world-class than to come somewhere like here and put yourself up against, as we would say in Top Gun, the best of the best.
Yeah, exactly. And to show her that we do have some of the best of the best here too.
So we're right now in Hall 26. We're right this year, unusually for Hannover Messe, but again, the show is evolving. You said it's evolved from heavy machinery. We've got into more industrial AI, but this year defense is definitely sort of center stage. Could you talk a little bit about defense and what it's going to mean for Team Canada and how we collaborate with other countries?
Yeah, defense is of course a real priority for our government right now, and I'm not so sure it's it's kind of a misnomer. It's not so much defense; it's deterrence that we have to focus on. but a lot of interest on
It's capability.
capability.
Isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interest in dual-use technologies, which is great. And as you look around here, there are a lot of technologies, whether it's robotics or AI or security technologies, that could be used for defense purposes. But I think the point that we wanted to get across to Minister, and a point that you understand when you're here, is that it's one thing to have all of these technologies for defense, but you have to manufacture it, you have to produce it. And so it's not just a potential defense technology or an application of technology in defense. It's bringing together the AI and the additive and the materials and the machining here and the robotics in all of the advanced manufacturing technologies, production technologies, and that's what's going to allow Canada and other countries to scale up production of all of these defense products, which will become even more important if there is any sort of security event. But it's that production capability that's the determining factor in modern defense or modern deterrence. Here, it's nobody's going to take us seriously if we can't manufacture at scale.
And we've seen it. We've had great examples. We've got Maple Wing drone here. We've seen drones in Ukraine which are being produced in their thousands, certainly per day. And actually in North America, we don't currently have that capability. We probably have the capacity, but it's not been switched on. We talk about shipbuilding for the future. We had a great conversation with AKA the other day about how long some of these ambitious Canada's new shipbuilding program is going to take. But as you say, time seems to be the thing. We need to bring this online. Is there?
Yeah.
Do you have any strategy for that, Jay?
Well, I don't think we're going to be building the capability to build submarines anytime soon, so that is something that we're going to...
but we are going to be building our own ships for the very first time, aren't we, with the Corvette class?
Yeah, and I think our strategy, what we really lack, and maybe not in the shipbuilding area, but what we really lack in a lot of other areas is kind of a vertically integrated defense company that can help to bring in various technologies and use those technologies to scale up their production of critical products for defense. And so what NGen's strategy is, because this is what we do on a lower scale, we integrate technologies for new production systems for manufacturers, but there's no reason why we couldn't integrate production capabilities to scale up a new vertically integrated production system that might operate through a lot of joint ventures, but bringing in companies with the capabilities to produce Arctic drones here. So it's not just the scanning technology and the positioning technology and the drones that's so important. It's who's going to build the lightweight materials and make sure it can operate in the Arctic, and who's going to be able to...
who's going to supply the GPS-denied navigation?
Yeah.
One chip silicon photonics would be a great, Canadian candidate there.
Exactly.
We've got all the pieces of the puzzle off, haven't we?
But
we put it together,
yeah. So that's what NGen, I think, can do and can offer, and I had a chance to talk to the Minister about that. But I think, again, you come here and you see all the pieces, and then the key question is how do we put that together, as you say?
And I think, one thing that's, working with the NGen team, and sometimes I think industry regards NGen as a little bit like Marmite with a big pot of money, and if I get some, I'm really happy, and I love it, and if I don't. But NGen fundamentally is full of industry veterans with literally decades of experience, and the project managers can really help foster those kind of collaborations you're talking about that we're going to need in order to put together end product capability.
Yeah, which is more important than ever in a couple of senses. I think as an economist here, the old model of just being able to do transactions in a marketplace and companies meeting each other and then all of a sudden doing business. Well, that's not the way modern innovation is done. And today you need to facilitate the relationships. You have to build the trust. You have to build partnerships, which is very different from just a transactional economic relationship. And you need to, bring the manufacturers together with the right technologies and build the technology stack that the manufacturers can actually use. And that just means a lot of connections, and how do you foster the collaboration? How do you build good project plans? How do you help to develop IP strategies, so you're sharing IP and then commercializing IP? But that strategy is really effective. For every dollar we've invested, we've generated sales and investment of more than 37 times that amount. Thing I love to told the minister when she was here, for every dollar we've invested, we've returned $5.70 back to the federal government in terms of taxes from the economic activity that's here. We've got when we do break the $500,000 mark in terms of sales as a result of Hanover, that's going to take $75 million in tax revenue back to the federal government, because that's personal income tax, corporate tax, GST. It all goes back to the to Ottawa and federal taxpayers. So, this is I think really important as a strategy for economic development as well as defense. But it all starts with, I think one of the other opportunity here in Hanover is the business is done among the Canadian companies who have never met each other, but all of a sudden say, hey, why don't we try this out, and why don't we partner? And it's that being together as part of Team Canada, having the receptions, having an opportunity to sit down and having over a coffee together, and that's what builds the business today. It's not necessarily just going out and shopping in a magazine or on Amazon.
And because the capability we need is so advanced, it really is going to require collaboration, isn't it? As you say, no one company by itself is necessarily going to be able to single-handedly develop the kind of capabilities that we need, either for our own infrastructure for defense. So that those serendipitous collisions, we had one yesterday, we've had them throughout the week, where I know one of your favorite catchphrases is "Who knew?" Who knew that we could do this? But Hanover's the kind of place where you find out, now I know, and now what are we going to do with it? So where does Team Canada, where does NGen go from here, Jay? Just to sort of take us out.
Well, we've already got about 25 exhibitors lined up for next year, and my big challenge right now is to convince the federal government that they should treat HANNOVER MESSE like they treat the Farnborough and the air show in Le Bourget in Paris as a signature event. This is the biggest international industrial technology show, and Canada needs to be here. And we've been treated as royalty by the Deutsche Messe organizers. We were called out during the opening ceremonies of the Brazilian pavilion, because they're a partner country this year. We were called out to the head of Deutsche Messe told the Brazilians he hoped they would be back next year like the Canadians are here. And to your point, Mark, a lot of people still think we are a partner country. But we'll be back next year, hopefully. And so we're thinking about even, maybe consolidating all of our presence in a big pavilion. And we've got some great locations here, but it makes more sense, I think, to bring all of Team Canada under one roof. And we're also looking at maybe adding on. We've got AI, we've got automation, robotics, cyber, networks, computing here this year. But Deutsche Messe has asked us, could you also organize a big showcase of advanced materials? So critical minerals and processing and recycling and biomaterials, nanomaterials, and the research that's going into that, and structural materials like new steel products and aluminum products, and these are real strengths that Canada has, and so they're looking at, in a way, that Canada can be continue to work on and launch initiatives for HANNOVER MESSE here. So I think it's a really good opportunity for us, and we've got 11 months to be back here.
And again, the power of NGen, with advanced materials, we've often talked about sort of the IKEA model, where we don't want to sell trees, we want to sell furniture, and everything often starts, Canada's very rich in resources. We've got a great company here, Uncharted AI.
Yeah.
I was interested to learn actually only 10% of the riches underneath the earth has been explored, and they're exploring what's underneath Canada. So we have, more to come, and there's more formulations with these materials and more collaborations that are going to be required.
And the say the AI or the smart, you talk about smart materials now. We have AI material discovery and characterization platforms that are at the University of Toronto and UBC and at the CanMet lab in Hamilton that are second to none in the world. This is leading edge research that for rapid characterization of materials and testing of materials. So all the way through from that to actual, the recycling of the materials, the processing of materials that are so important in the manufacturing supply chain. I forgot who I was talking to yesterday, but they were saying, well, maybe you guys could focus on materials for manufacturing. And I said, well, what other application would there be?
Yes.
Here, you just don't develop a
materials for burning.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're smarter than that.
But I think there's some really good opportunities for us, going ahead, and again, it's all this. This year too, the organizers of the fair have tried to not isolate, but to define areas of expertise around the fair. So we've got an industrial AI area, we've got automation, robotics, we had the defense production area, but it's all the same thing. You look around this hall and it's full of robotics, but it's all a smart robotics with AI embedded in the robotics. So what's the difference between here and industrial AI space? And, so again, it's sort of how do you we could build the scale, the efficiencies around that, and really draw a lot more attention to all of the Canadian capabilities, I think, in one pavilion. That's my big takeaway from this year.
And my takeaway from that is, if we want more capability as a country, manufacturing is at the heart of it, and NGen is really at the heart of Canadian manufacturing. So look forward to coming back next year, Jay. Thank you.
It's always a lot of fun, and thank you, Mark. You've been doing a great job here in the podcast, and we're so lucky that we have you as a partner, and you're here with us too.
Well, I'm certainly, hopefully, an evangelist for everything that we do, technology and manufacturing-wise. Thank you very much, Jay.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again. Welcome back to the NGen Conversations Podcast, streaming live from HANNOVER MESSE 2026, proudly sponsored by York Region. I'm your host, Mark Kirby, and for the next half an hour or so, I'm delighted to have Dave Anderson, your Chief Strategy Officer with Sarkomere. Dave, maybe before we get into Sarkomere, tell us a little bit about your career pre-Sarkomere.
So, absolutely, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be interviewed by you. So I've spent 40 years in the military. I started as a soldier, and I retired as a brigadier general. I did 8 years in the reserves, and then 32 years with Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry. The latter part of my career, I became a bit of an intellectual hitman for the Chief of Defense Staff and the Vice Chief and others, where I was responsible for ramrodding the teams that built some of our cornerstone and capstone intellectual concepts in the Canadian Armed Forces. My last 5 years working for the Canadian Armed Forces as a general, as a public servant, and as a contractor was leading digital transformation for the Canadian Armed Forces, not the department, but the military side of it. So I have a long background in thinking and doing, and delivering is perhaps the best way to put it. And my origin story is I'm an immigrant, so I was born in the UK. My family chose to come to Canada in 1967, just in time for Expo 67, and we moved to Montreal. And now I'm definitely a Canadian.
Okay, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about what is digital transformation in the Army exactly, without breaking any secrets? What does that mean?
So there's a public-facing document called the Digital Transformation Campaign Plan, which I wrote a fair bit of it and certainly worked with the team that did. Transformation at that level is not about technology, it's about culture and process, and it's mostly about culture. And so it was about setting the wheels in motion and doing providing all the underlying pieces that would enable us to make the transformation. And as I said, it's really a cultural problem more than a technology problem.
We're transforming. Is this from paper to digital, or more than that, or from analog to digital?
Right, so analog to digital is digitization. Digitalization is adopting the processes demanded by the technology. Large organizations, and something that moves as slowly as the military can, has a tendency to take the new technology and adapt the technology to their existing processes, which means you don't garner any of the benefits of the technology. Whereas it was about inducing a mind shift so that you are forced to adopt the processes demanded by the technology. So not trying to make everything so it's comfortable for the person that's been doing it for 50 years and stick with our tried and true, because our tried and true aren't as efficient as effective with the advent of new digital technologies. So it really is a mindset and learning how to do that.
Can you think of an example just to make it real as to how sometimes somebody might try and hammer a new technology into an old way of working, how a dysfunctional way of not really adopting the benefits?
Right. So the best example is a universal example for most in business, which is SAP. So when the Canadian military adopted SAP, we insisted that all the SAP processes match what we already do, and what we already do is people with clipboards and hydraulic. So we basically purchased a suite of capability and didn't unleash it at all. So it's about making sure you take the governor off the car once you buy it. So it's an example of that. An example of how digitalization can change a lot of things. The vast majority of administrative processes are ripe for robotic process automation, RPA. If you do that, then you free up a whole bunch of people that already know how to be in the military, so they're acclimatized and acculturated to the military, and you can elevate them up the cognitive chain, give them skills that enable them to manage the digital processes, and so you get a huge return on investment. As I used to say to the Chief of Defense Staff, the last one, a good friend of mine, I would say, hey, boss, we're not short 10,000 people. We got 20,000 people doing things that don't matter, that could easily be done by technology.
Well, that's potentially a great segue, Dave, into what Sarkomere is doing. And Sarkomere, up until now, has maybe been famous for its robotic hand.
Correct.
And here at Hannover Messe, we're seeing lots of robot applications. Some are pick and place, gantry type machines. We're seeing dogs whizzing around quite fast this year. We're seeing humanoid robots. Can you explain a little bit, why did Sarkomere sort of start with the hand? What's your view on the hand?
So we started with the hand because our chief technical officer was working on a prosthetic hand when he was at school, and he was working through that problem set, and eventually realized this is a much bigger tool. The whole world has been designed to interface with humans, and the primary manner in which humans interface with the physical world is with their hands. As Aristotle said, the hand is the tool of tools. So it is the primary tool that all humans use.
I'm glad we get to quote a bit of Aristotle here.
It's always a good day when you have an Aristotelian quote.
Absolutely. So the tool of tools. Okay.
And so the way that we started to look at it is the problem set, as articulated by Elon Musk and others, with robotics at scale and automation at scale, is the manipulation gap. We call it the final 2 feet. When we're in Europe, we call it the final half meter. And it's really about, how do you get from putting a robot in place and having it do something, okay,
to really add some value? It's it's that bit that's adding the value when we're actually assembling, disassembling something rather than just moving around.
Correct. And ultimately, you have to manipulate things, objects. So this made us realize that there's a much larger market and a much larger need than just hands or end of arm effectors. As a result, we have gone at it from 2 directions. One is to provide a hand that has as near as possible to human dexterity. The other end is to make something that can just a parallel gripper, for example. Sarkomere has got a range of end effectors that are based off of gripping. The beauty of the human hand is that, or a simulacrum of the human hand, or as near human dexterity in your end effector, a robotic hand, is that you're now tool agnostic. And the robot can literally use any tool that a human uses, because the human that uses the tool uses their hand. And so if you have the same capability, what that gives is it gives an enormous amount of latitude, agility, and resiliency when you're doing industrial automation. People are used to seeing videos of giant robots, welding robots, normally in manufacturing facilities, automotive manufacturing. That is great, and that robotic station and that robot is optimized to do a single thing based off of its end effector, which is a welding rod.
Might be spot welding a car frame together. And again, it's geometrically, for a human to try and reach all of those places, our arms aren't that long, are they? And we're not that strong. It's a great job for the kind of heavy-duty industrial robot dedicated to one task.
Right, and it means that you have to make an investment in automation for each of the separate tasks, because it's about the end effector. Whereas if your end effector is the equivalent of the human hand, then you don't need a welding robot. Okay, you need a welding tool to put in the hand of a robot with human level dexterity, and that changes everything. So it gives a lot of agility in in a industrial facility, much like you do with your humans, to repurpose your labor. In this case, it's collaborative digital labor. It's autonomous automated labor. You can repurpose it in the factory and say, okay, we're closing that part of the line, or we've opened a new line, and you just literally relocate the robot, and the robot doesn't need to be different because it just uses the tools that were designed for the human at that station anyways.
Just like we would say to somebody, or when you were a commanding officer, you need to go and do this now. we're finished doing that, we're going to go and do a different task. And again, humans with our hands, we're very good at doing many different things.
Right, and labor is a resource, and you allocate the resource to the task at hand. And if you use if you're using collaborative or augmented labor in the form of an autonomous robot, that means that you can reassign it new tasks. It then means that that resource called labor is reassignable, and it's not narrowly focused on being a welder. Okay, you can use it for any of the processes. And when you take analog factories and digitalize them or automate them, in many cases, that's the best path to increasing your efficiency without having to design a factory from scratch that is designed to be completely automated. So you can automate existing analog factories if you have the human form, at least from the torso up. Because where the value is added in automation is actually from the torso up. It's not the mobility. Mobility is just a factor.
And it may even be one of the 7 wastes, motion. So
right.
Yes.
And that's why we focus now on above the waist. And we've also realized that normally you don't hire someone to be on a production line if they only have one arm, or you don't ask your workers to come to work with one arm tied behind their back. And the reality is that bimanual manipulation is the gold standard because that's how humans do things. Inevitably, humans, when they use their hands, when you use your phone, for instance, you grip it with one hand and you do dexterous use with the other hand. But you need both hands you need both end effectors in order to do it. So you need a gripper and you need a dexterous manipulator. That's the case when you're using a phone. It's the case when you're when the robot is holding a part to drill a hole. When it needs to drill that hole, it reaches down, grabs it, hopefully a good quality tool, and human tool, a drill. I was going to say Milwaukee, but I didn't want to say specifically Milwaukee, but I just said specifically Milwaukee. You use a quality human design tool to drill that hole, as opposed to having a robot that just drills holes.
I suppose one bit that we're glossing over here, and maybe why Sarkomir is offering complete solutions, but we're saying we can repurpose this by, what's your description for it, where we have 2 hands? By
manual manipulation.
Bimanual manipulation robot, but it needs a brain, doesn't it? Because
correct.
When I tell it, how do I tell it to go and do this? How is Sarkomir addressing that problem? Because that has been one of the barriers to adoption of any form of robot in some ways. Oh, they're too difficult to program.
Correct.
How are you addressing that, Dave?
It's one of our fundamental design principles. And I'm not saying for an instant that we're not going to sell hands. We're going to sell a lot of hands, and to that end, they are both software and platform agnostic. So they can be clicked onto any robotic arm, any cobot whatsoever. And it's quite likely that at the end of a lot of humanoid robots that are sold at scale, you'll find a Sarkomir hand, because our only competition right now is actually the human hand. Because our robotic hand is so far ahead of our competitors in terms of its capability and its resilience.
And I have to interject another Top Gun quote here, but that's pretty arrogant considering the company you're in. But but I like that in an X major.
It's only arrogant if it's not true. Okay, if it's demonstrably provable, then it's not arrogance. It's a statement of fact. It does, however, as you pointed out, speak to our level of ambition. We're not looking to be a small niche player in this market. We think we have the product, the potential, and the team to be a global leader in this market. And that's how we're orienting ourselves to that end.
So I interrupted you. We were talking about, the need for Sarkomir may well be agnostic to the end of what it goes on, but what about the brain right now? How do we grow adoption of this? Can it be as easy as, I want you to go and do another task? I can understand now we have the technology with the hand to go and pick up if it now needs to go pick up a hammer and do something different, not a drill, but how do I program it to do that, Dave?
So the bottom line is you don't have to program it, because the product has its own embedded AI, okay? And the AI does things like object localization So, for instance, a simple application is pick and place. To have a bin of multiple things that are all different and be told to pick one of them, reach out, pick it up, and say, hey, I got the one thing. Every hand we deliver has embedded AI that could do that capability. Okay. When we sell a torso, it's a larger AI model, if you will, because it has to do both by manual manipulation. So it has to orient things in two things in space in order to complete a task. And one of the standard problems is, can you close the hands together at the end of your robot, right? And so you have to address that, and we've managed to address that with our own embedded AI. We build it ourselves. It's part of what we do is that, for instance, we build our own actuators, we build our own motors. We don't rely on other suppliers for that, which is how we can make the 24/7, 365 days guarantee for our top of the flight hand, because we have designed it so that it can last that long. We give the guarantee, which means if something happens to the hand, we replace it immediately. That's a completely different way of looking at things. It's really robotics as a service. It's what we call full stack automation as a service. So we do the full stack, including the AI.
Sounds like a really smart move. I used to work with Renishaw, and they made probes that were agnostic to what machine tool they go in. And they were moderately expensive. And if you smashed one up, one of the great things was you could send it back to Renishaw and they'd do repair by exchange. And it sounds like Sarkomere have got the same thing, where if something goes wrong with a hand, you can send it back. And because you manufacture them and you understand them, you're able to replace it.
Right.
That sounds very innovative.
And we're developing agreements with regionally based channel partners, who will be the local representative of Sarkomere, which means that not only will they be able to make sales, but they will also be the provider, the regionally and locally available provider of the replacement hand should something happen to the hand. We don't believe things will happen to the hand from wear and tear, but there's always a chance for someone to go like this, or drop it or whatever it happens to be. We replace it immediately, but we can accelerate our ability to do that.
Presumably, unfortunately, we do still have industrial accidents with human hands, don't we?
Absolutely.
So there will be accidents, yes. So there will be some need, no matter how good the hand is. Can we move a little bit? A lot of people, it's Family Day here today at Hannover Messe, which is great to get youngsters used to seeing the kind of technology. And certainly I found that there seems to be a little bit of a generational divide between how people feel about the robots and the future of work.
Right.
I guess one fear is, will just like the cotton ginny, will robots take everybody's work, or is there a more optimistic view of the future of work, Dave?
So there is, and there's basically two lenses to look at it. One of it is the demographic lens. So particularly in Western countries and Western societies, we've all got the same demographic problem, is that we're not creating enough workers, to man our existing labor requirements. So the human labor market is restricted in the pool size because we've restricted the size of our populations, or our populations aren't as big as they used to be. The work still needs to be done. So it's not a matter of replacing humans, it's about augmenting humans or doing complementarity. If you look at the skill fate, for example, that we're going to have as some of our more skilled workers start to retire, often they're retiring because of their physical limitations. So if you think of something like high-powered power line transmission repairs, the person that's been able to do that, she's been doing it for the last 40 years, but she doesn't want to get in that bucket anymore and go up there and do the repairs. But with automation, she doesn't have to get in the bucket. She just has to put on a headset and some manipulative gloves to do teleoperation.
So she's got 40 years of experience now, but now she's able to drive this new technology.
And is no longer limited by her physical capacity. So in many ways, it extends the utility, extends the work life of our existing demographics, and it'll give us an opportunity to train the next replacement.
We don't lose that tribal knowledge, which everyone's afraid of right now.
Absolutely. So that's
quite quickly anyway. So you say we certainly get maybe a longer runway to train a new workforce.
Right, and that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is the 3D or 4D model. When it comes to AI, we say that you look after the 3Ds, dull, dirty, and dangerous. So you use AI and embodied AI for dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. I add in a fourth one, which is demeaning. So there are plenty of tasks that are relatively demeaning for humans. But if you can actually apply it through embodied AI, which is what a robot is, then you get a lot further.
So you have a fairly optimistic view for the future of work, I think.
I do. I think that this will ensure that we humans can continue to enjoy the life we have now, despite the fact that the demographic pressures that are there right now. So we're basically augmenting the labor pool. We're not replacing a labor pool. We're augmenting the human labor pool. And we believe that autonomous or robotic labor and human labor have to exist side by side. And it's not about one or t'other. In some cases, it's about using automated or robotic labor in order to allow the humans to elevate up the cognitive chain and do the management of the dull, dirty, demeaning, and dangerous tasks, as opposed to doing them themselves.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. Let's sort of round it off, talking a little bit about the future of Sarkomere and your kind of company culture. Maybe that might take us back to your career beforehand. Tell us where Sarkomere goes next and kind of how you're functioning as a unit.
So one of the reasons I'm the chief strategy officer of Sarkomere, there's a couple of reasons. One is I'm an original investor. So I'm a friends and family investor into the company. Now that's because the team in Sarkomere has a multi-layered family. So the CTO and the founder, the guy who's behind the big idea, brought in his mother and his father to run the business so he could focus on the technology. And there are other elements of that family that are involved. The people that aren't involved in that family, so my last name isn't Mandhar, but I'm involved in another family. So most of our non-technical staff work together in the military in the same regiment, and so it's that regimental family. What that gives us is a commonality of culture, and it's easy to develop a robust and common culture within the organization, which will allow us to withstand the inevitable shocks that when you go from startup to scale up, which is normally a point of most likely failure, pommel foo, if you will. So we're going to be able to avoid that because of the strength of our culture. I love being part of both families, to be honest with you, and I love working with young people attacking a really big problem, which is what I've been doing all my life. And
Sarkomere's ambitions are, you talk about startup to scale up. You don't want to stop there, do you? Can you give us a little glimpse into where you see Sarkomere going?
Yes, we have the potential, and I believe we now have the capacity to realize the potential to be a global leader in embodied AI, particularly in bimanual manipulation and the above the waist element, which of automation, particularly industrial automation, which is where all the value is added. And so I think that we have not only the potential, but I think we're going to realize our potential to be a global leader in this market.
And what marketplace do you think Sarkomere will? You'll obviously have a world domination plan, but is there a particular marketplace that you think will be the first point of adoption as you go from scale up even bigger?
It's the marketplace and the use case. So the most obvious use case for us is industrial automation, and particularly in automotive manufacturing. There's a well-established culture of cobots and using collaborative augmented labor through the use of robots. So it's an obvious place for us. In terms of regions, we need to be careful that we don't spread ourselves too thin. We're still relatively small. Very much a European focus right now in delivery, and we're developing the Asian market at the same time. We believe that between the two of them, we're ideally poised, and remembering that Canada is the North American we're the European part of North America, so we're part European, but we're also a Pacific nation, and because of our size, and so we have an affinity with both ends of that spectrum.
Well, Dave Anderson, it's been a real pleasure
I've really
talking
enjoyed
about the future of work and the future of Sarkomere and the future of your family. I really wish you good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.